Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. I would like to welcome you all to this briefing session today. My name is Richard Clark and I'm the Programme Manager for the Safe Work Improvement Programme. Today, we will be covering the Safe Working Services Framework and the Non-Technical Skills Training Programme. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat via the Q&A icon at the top of your screen. This can be done throughout the presentation, but if possible, wait until the end because there is a possibility that your question will be answered during the presentation and all the questions will be covered at the end. Please note today's event is being recorded and we will send a link to the video out afterwards if you'd like to share it with your colleagues. I'm now going to hand over to Kath Bosler for an acknowledgement of country and safety share.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we're on, and today I'm here on the land of the Awabakal people. And Awabakal in traditional language means Great Plain, and it's used to refer to Lake Macquarie, and we pay our respects today to the elders past and present and emerging. And our next slide, please. So I'd like to start today with a safety share of a recent incident that we had down at Picton. Now, this isn't the same incident that we had back in, this is very similar to the incident that we had back in April. In April, we had a very similar incident involving a TWA where a hydrema dump truck, so a high rail, was on track in front of the pass of a train, which is again is very similar to the incident that we had a few weeks ago down at Picton. While there are some similarities between the two incidents, there are also some new items that we've picked up. In this incident, the TWA had been stood down, and we were on the passage of the train past the inner flag person who was waiting to set up. The PO assumed that the train, or thought that he had heard the train pass the exit end boundary of the work site where he was positioned. In actual fact, the train was still at the platform. He then gave permission for the hydrema dump truck to cross the tracks and on track. And at that point, the hydrema started traversing towards the station platform at Picton, and at this point the train departed from the platform at low speed, and the train observed the machine on track directly in front of them, heading towards them. The driver applied emergency brakes and stopped about 50 metres from the hydrema. The hydrema operator reversed their vehicle and off-tracked. We're very lucky that nobody was injured during this incident. As a result of this, we and the previous incident, we mandated that clearance hand signallers must be appointed for use of TWA. We've also put an intermediate ban on using TWAs for anything other than adjacent line working. So where we're actually operating on that line, we've said we're not going to do that until we have concluded the investigation and we can put some more rigid controls in place. So for those of you on the call, I know our panel members, we have instructed them to brief their people. But if you're not a panel member or you're a prospective SPO, then we would like you to make sure that you have briefed your people on the previous flash alert that mandates that use of a clearance hand signaller. Thanks, Richard, and now let's pass over to Tony Murphy.
Thanks, Kath, and Richard also. Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're located in Australia. We'll just shortly play a Safe Working Services Framework video from our Chief Executive Officer, Mark Campbell. A number of people have probably seen this already, but it certainly summarises the key elements of our Safe Working Services Framework and our why of why we're going down the delivery of this program. Thanks.
Safety is key to everything we do at ARTC. But unfortunately, we continue to see too many near misses and incidents on our network. To guide our actions, our Pathway to Zero harm strategy is helping us minimize risk as we strive to eliminate harm. As part of the strategy, we've developed a safe work improvement program, which is dedicated to simplified, unified, and safe track worker protection across our network. To help us reduce train to track worker risk and ensure that track workers and work sites are safely protected, we've developed a new framework for organizations who seek to provide safe working services to operate on the ARTC network. Significantly, the framework will allow us to monitor the effectiveness of our safe working service providers and identify continuous improvement opportunities which ARTC and our safe working partners can invest in over the next 3 to 5 years. We recognize that implementing more robust controls around safe working services may impact the way organizations interact with ARTC. So, in the coming months, we'll work with organizations to minimize the impact to work that is already under contract with us. ARTC also has a number of contracts and tenders in the market. So from July through to 30th of November 2022, we'll progressively transition new contracts to be sourced from a new safe working provider panel or from authorized self-performer organizations. We know that implementing these changes may present challenges. However, our uncompromising commitment to safety and reducing train to track worker risk has necessitated a more rigorous approach. Thank you for your understanding and support in helping us to achieve sustained safety improvements to ultimately ensure that everyone who works on our network gets home safely every day.
Okay, thanks for viewing that video. Just before I hand back on it, probably just a couple of key takeaways there as Kath and Richard and others will talk to throughout the remainder of the presentation. I guess in essence, our Safe Working Services framework, which is a combination of our authorised self-performers and our panel, is active and underway at the moment. And as you heard through Mark's video, we do have a transition period which is extending out to the 30th of November. Just noting that we have a wide cohort of audience on the call and getting close to 100 attendees, so a number of our contracting partners, in addition to our representatives from our panel, our Safe Working Services panel. Throughout the transition period, I do just encourage our panel representatives and importantly our contracting partners doing works in our corridor that require safe working services, that if they're experiencing any supply constraints around resourcing of safe working, to reach out to your ARTC contract manager, or if it's with respect to a tender and you're submitting tenders or tenders that are under evaluation, to reach out to your tender evaluation facilitator within the procurement and supply team as well, because we do want to be obviously working with our partners in the transition period, because this is a significant cultural change for our business, not only for our ARTC employees, but our contracting partners, and it's important that we build those relationships. So I'll hand over to Kath.
Thanks, Tony. So for the last 18 months, as you know, we've been on this journey to develop and implement a framework for the provision of safe working services that sets out our requirements for approved organisations that they must have in order to provide us with the confidence that the safe workers that they supply are supported by their robust safety systems and processes. This framework applies to both our panel members, and it also applies to our self-performer organisations. And we want to make sure that all our organisations have those robust safety systems in place. And so to do that, we created a matrix that our organisations will be assessed against before that authorisation is granted to work on our network. We've created and updated the documents on the left-hand side to support the implementation of our framework, our panel members and our SPOs. and that applies to all people performing safe working on our network, both ARTC people and other RIM organisations that may wish to utilise our network for adjacent line protection. Next slide, please. So we thought it was hard work to get to this stage, but we know the hard work is really going to be coming in the next few months as we count down those days till the 30th of November at the end of our transition period. And as Tony said, this is going to be a big cultural change to our organisation and a change in the way that we work. We know that our transition to our future state is one of the largest project risks we have as we consolidate the number of organisations that are able to provide us with those safe working services. We know there's going to be movement of workers from one organisation to another, from those organisations that maybe weren't successful, and they may choose to migrate to a panel member or an approved SPO. Those organisations have demonstrated through the tender process and through the SPO authorisation process that they have the systems and processes to recruit, train, develop and expand their workforce. And we will be closely monitoring how they are doing this to ensure our business needs and our expectations of them are met. Now I'd like to hand over to Richard Tudor.
Hello everybody, my name is Richard Tudor. I'm a category manager at ARTC and part of the procurement team. I'll take you through here a bit of information that's contained on our contractor compliance system webpage. In establishing the Safe Working Services Panel and the self-performer authorisation process, we've developed new ways of working, which include new and updated processes and procedures. This web page that you can see a screenshot of on the slide here is a hub of information for the Safe Working Services Panel and the self-performer authorisation process. It's externally available, so you can all access it by your browser, and it's regularly updated. And just that screenshot there shows the links to the self-performer process, the panel, as well as some of our policies, forms and procedures. It contains, if you click on one of those links, you'll see there's the panel members are identified and the rules book areas they've been appointed to are shown. And soon it will contain a list of authorised self-performer organisations. If we move to the next slide, the same web page also shows and contains our waivers, notices and alerts and other safety critical information that relate to getting onto track to do works. So next slide, please. So how's the change been implemented? In the last month, we've completed some key milestones for the project. With regard to the panel, we've communicated the outcome of the panel tender. We've trained over 200 of our employees about how to use the panel. We've established the content on the internet page shown on the previous slides. And we've held a panel launch meeting that was supported by our CEO and key members of our exec team, as well as the panel members. And we've also had contract commencement meetings with all our panel members. So we're ready to go with the panel. And as Tony said earlier, it's ready to use and it's already being used by our business. With regard to the self-performer authorisation process, we've received more than 50 applications. We have had some delays in assessing these applications, but we've now trained an additional 2 people to improve our ability to assess those applications. What we can say is that 100% of applications have had their primary review and 50% of applications have had their secondary review. And you can expect to hear some those people have had, those organisations have both reviews. We'll can expect to hear shortly from ARTC regarding whether they've been successful or not. Next slide, please. So, as mentioned by Mark in his video and Tony in his introduction, we've established a transition period to position ourselves for success as an extended team that includes our contracting partners. The transition period is designed to minimise disruption to our operations as we progress to the use of authorised providers of safe working services on our rail network from 1 December this year. The transition period also provides the time required to collaborate with our contractors and third parties to allow you to update your ways of working and to support us to achieve our objective. We're also mindful and understand and are sensitive to the fact that some of our contractors will experience significant changes to their business as a result of this process. The transition period, as Tony mentioned and Mark mentioned, ends on the 30th of November. Until then, we do have the ability to use unauthorised providers of safe working services. However, we are recommending to our contracting parties and to our buyers internally that they move to use authorised providers as soon as practically possible. All of this helps us achieve our objective that from 1st of December, safe working services must be provided by authorised service providers. I'll just pass over to Kath for the next slide.
So one of the other documents that we've updated is our protocols for entering the rail corridor, RISPR 003. We've actually made several changes to this, and we've also updated it quite recently to really spell out the adjacent line issue with our adjacent rims. So this document basically mandates that the panel or SPOs must be used for all works on the ARTC network. We do have an exemption for RIMs and RSOs operating under their own accreditation or for the purposes of adjacent line working only. And we've defined adjacent line working without the need to actually do physical work on our tracks, only for the protection of assets on the adjacent RIMS network. We have published this document on the ARTC intranet and extranet, so it's available for your use. And just hand back to Rich.
So thank you, Kath. Standing offers currently have a large role to play in the way that ARTCs traditionally obtain safe working services themselves. Throughout the transition period, these will be replaced by use of the panel, and obviously noting that during the transition period, unauthorised providers can still be used, and so existing standing offers can still be used. During the transition period, we'll be making changes to the standing offers. So where a standing offer includes safe working services as part of a broader scope, those standing offers will be amended to remove safe working services from the scope. Standing offers that are solely for safe working services will be terminated, and they'll be absolutely replaced by the safe working services panel. So this means that from 1 December this year, safe working services must be provided by authorised providers. If you go to the next slide, please. So we're also making changes to our tender documentation. So to ensure our requirements are clear and consistent, we are adding safe working questions to the questions that we already ask in our request for tender and request for quotation documents. These questions will apply where the scope of services or works includes the provision of safe working services. The questions require respondents to confirm how they intend to provide any required safe working services, and we give you 5 standard options. You can identify that you'll provide the safe working services as an authorised self-performer organisation. You can identify that you'll engage a panel member to provide the services, or you can identify you'll use a combination of options 1 and 2. Or you can identify that the safe working services aren't applicable, so it gives you a chance to challenge that, which is healthy. And you can also identify that you'll use an unauthorised provider up until the point of the 30th of November. So it's just important to remember that the works would have to be complete within the transition period for that to be a viable option. So I'll now hand over to Jess, who will talk to you about our non-technical skills programme.
Good afternoon, all. For those that I haven't met, I'm Jess, and I'm a member of the tech training team. I'm the training implementation senior advisor for the non-technical skills program, which forms part of SWIP. It is unquestionable that working safely requires us to undertake jobs using a combination of technical skills and soft skills, and that's why the non-technical skills program was developed. So this program aims to enhance the domain knowledge and the soft skills that are required to deliver effective protection when out on track. The non-tech skills program is also for qualified protection officers, track force protection coordinators and track workers that are carrying out protection across our network. So we're aiming to ensure that all current protection officers, track force protection coordinators and track workers complete the one-day program, which will essentially give us the strongest position of protection. We have rolled out the majority of internal sessions across the business. So our internal rollout is almost complete and feedback so far has been positive, with attendees noting that these skills have helped them conduct better pre-work briefs and also encourage them to call out aspects that they don't understand. We've also seen an increase in the adoption and application of our communication standards. This includes the use of our professional, accurate, clear and concise, or otherwise known as PAC principles in safety critical transactions and communication in general when they're out on track. So these are all really great positives that we're moving forward with. However, we're now beginning to work with our authorised Safe Working Service panel members and authorised self-performer organisations to ensure that the same internal standards exist in these partner organisations. So we're really, we need to ensure that our partner organisations are equally capable and confident in their ability to conduct safe working across the ARTC network and continue to reduce the risks around train-to-track worker interaction. So more in-depth briefings regarding the program are scheduled to commence around mid-September with our authorised panel members, followed by our authorised self-performer organisations as well. So please watch this space. And that's all from me. Over to you, Richard.
I'd like to thank the presenters for that presentations. We're now, and we deliberately allowed quite a bit of time for questions today. If there is any questions, again, can you please add them into the Q&A icon on the top of your screen? See it at the top. At the moment, we haven't received any questions so far. So I'm just going to give it a minute or two to give you the opportunity to type any questions that you would like to ask in relation to either the Safe Working Services panel or in regards to the non-technical skills training. Okay. It doesn't look like there are any questions coming in. If you have any questions after the event is finished, please feel free to submit them through utilising the swip@artc.com.au email address, and we will make sure we respond to those questions and circulate the responses. Because there are no questions coming through, I'd just like to go over a couple of key takeaways. And yeah, it's just sort of confirmation that the Safe Working Service panel and the self-performer organisation process are now both operational across ARTC. And reiterate the dates that has been mentioned a few times during the presentation from Mark's video, from Tony and from Richard, is the transition period ends on the 30th November 2022. And as part of this whole process in terms of the non-technicals and the Safe Working Service framework, it is about us all working together to change our ways of working. Okay, and collectively, we will all improve the way we are working. So there is a question just coming in at the moment. If you just bear with me, I'll just have a look at those. Okay, first question is for Jess. I'm just going to pass through. The question is the non-technical skills program going to be yet another cost for protection officers to pay?
As it stands, the program does come at a cost.
Yep. Thanks for that, Jess. And you say we'll follow that up in more detail in terms of what the implications are in terms of the rollout of non-technical skills. And I believe there'll be sessions put in place to talk through in more detail about the rollout and timing of that program. Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be covered in the that will be covered in the briefings around mid-September with our contractor panel members.
Thank you for that, Jess. Okay. Okay, another question for Jess at the moment is, who will be conducting the non-technical skills one-day workshops?
So we do have a panel of RTOs that we currently use. So the non-technical skills program will be delivered by those RTO panel members. You can find them. Yep, we will provide details of all of that in our briefings with you as well.
Thank you for that, Jess. Next question is for Kath. Kath, the question's from Peter Hodgson. Kath mentioned a link to a waiver for private RIMs that are ARTC signal/controlled, but I can't find this link.
So it's not a waiver. The wording is in RLS PR003 and applies to adjacent line RIMs and RSOs operating under their own accreditation or for the purposes of adjacent line working. So if you go into the copy that's on the internet and any other questions or queries after you've read that, either give me a call or go through the SWIP email and we'll get back to you.
Thank you for that, Kath. The next question relates to what does TA20 in the COP mean? That's come through a couple of times. That is, Kath, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but I believe that's relating to the...
So TA20 is our Victorian rulebook and Code of Practice COP is our rulebook for SAWA.
Thank you for that clarification there, Kath. Richard, a question for you at the moment. The self-perform organisation application, is it still open?
Yeah, hi everyone. The self-perform application process is always open, so you can make an application any day, anytime.
Thank you, Richard. There is a question from Cal Devane that says, will the presentation be sent out automatically or will it be required to apply for a copy? Also, are we able to circulate it? I can confirm that we will be sending a version of the presentation out along with a recording of this briefing session that can all be circulated with your colleagues. The next question that's come in is in relation to what happens for contractors that do TMO moves around the network. Your safe working panel currently doesn't have qualified staff to move machines onto the other RIMs for machine transfers. What is ARTC's plan?
I'll take that, Richard. So machine transfers are generally operating under those machines' RIM accreditation. So their drivers, the TMOs for those will be under that RIM accreditation.
Thank you for that, Kath. The next question has come in from Steve. Will there be engagement exceptions where the panel members are unable to resource? Richard, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Look, we've got a procurement manual and processes that require us once a panel is raised to use that panel in the first instance. And we're very focused on making sure that the panel has the supply capacity to meet our requirements. So our expectation is that the panel and the self-performer organisation companies will be capable of providing the services that we require.
Thank you for that, Richard. That is all the questions we have at the moment. I'm conscious we did just get a sudden influx a minute ago, so I'll just give it another minute again just to see if there are any other further questions that come in. Okay, and just a reminder as well that this isn't the last opportunity to ask questions. Please do reach out using the swip@artc.com.au email address if you do think of anything, again, once the briefing is finished or if there are any additional questions. Okay, there is another question that's come in. What happens after 30th November for competent workers who are not with an authorised panel or SPO? Rich, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, so after the 30th of November, there'll be two groups of organisations that are authorised to provide safe working services. Those will be authorised self-performer organisations and panel members, as you pointed out in your question. Your option there as a safe worker would be either to migrate to work for one of the panel members or to establish a relationship with an authorised self-performer organisation.
So just to add to that, so Richard's right, you'd either have to be a panel or work for one of the panel members, or be an employee of a self-performer organisation, or an ARTC employee.
Thank you for that clarification there, both Rich and Kath. One more question that's just come in. What happens for the RIMS in Victoria engaging contractors? The supply is short at the moment. Have the Safe Working panel members got KPIs to force growth? Rich, would you
I'll
like to take
take that one if it's
Thank you.
relating to the panel. I'll take that one. So what we have is a monthly a regime of meetings with our panel members where we will review our requirements and demands going forwards relative to the capacity and the ability of the panel members to supply. So what we'll do is forecast with our panel members so that we understand where the gaps will be in the long term, where we expect there to be risks, so that we can motivate both ourselves and our panel members to ensure that there are safe workers available to meet our requirements.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, that's the last question again at the moment, but I will just give it a few seconds just to see if any more questions do come through. Okay, another question has just come in. What is the expected procedure for engaging with ARTC work that requires safe working services? Do we need to engage a safe working service provider to develop worksite plans and obtain approvals from ARTC prior to going to site? Okay.
So I'll take that one. That will be dictated or enforced by the ARTC project manager. So our ARTC buyers, they'll give you the direction on what to do there. There'll be a combination.
Thank you very much for that, Kath. A question that's come in is following on from the question just asked. Does the employee need to be full-time? Richard, would you like? Oh, sorry, Kath.
No.
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 After that. Okay, another question's come in, I think, Richard, just in relation to your answer. Shouldn't the KPIs be about quality, not quantity?
Yeah, they are, and I think there's a related question around route and site knowledge as well, and as a key part of both our engagement process with self-performer organisations and with panel members, where those organisations, when they're proposing and nominating a safe worker, have to fill out a safe worker scorecard, and that safe worker scorecard covers off the experience and the route knowledge and the risks associated with that individual safe worker. So we're very much focusing in on capability as well.
And we'll be looking at those results during our monthly panel meetings on the risk scores that the engaged people that have been provided produce.
Thank you, Kath and Richard. I think just building upon that question, there's another anonymous question coming, which was, will we be tracking the panel members' routes/site knowledge as we do with the level of protection competency?
So we expect our panel members, sorry, Richard, to actually track that route knowledge as part of their engagement and as part of the information that they provide to us.
Thank you very much for that, Kath. Just a question as well, again, it's just come through. Can we clarify, sorry, 1 second. Just clarifying, people who are on the panel or an SPO cannot be casual employees. They have to be employed and not on a casual basis, Richard. So
if you're a safe worker that's working for a self-performer organisation, you must be an employee, and that can't be a casual. If you are a safe worker working through a panel member, then you can be a casual.
Thank you for that clarification, Richard. Another anonymous question that's come in. What happens if the safe working panel members don't have the capacity to aid with third-party access? Will ARTC aid the contractor to avoid delays? Who would be best placed to?
So we have, through the tender evaluation process, we've taken the number of panel members that we believe will meet our demand, and that included third-party access. And again, we'll be closely monitoring our panel members for the ability to provide us with the amount of people to meet our business needs, and that includes our third parties.
Thank you for clarifying that, Kath. Just looking at the questions. There's a question come through around, can you please remind us of the corridor access management procedure? I'll make sure that we include a link to that document for clarification as part of our wrap up of the email, just to make sure that it is crystal clear in terms of what our expectations are in terms of relation to corridor access management and the requesting process. Okay, I'm just going to wait to see if there are any further questions, because that covers everything that's come through at the moment. I'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, that appears to be all the questions we have at the moment coming in. So again, I'll just reiterate that if you do have any further questions after we finish the briefing today, please do reach out using the swip@artc.com.au email address. And just to confirm what I did mention earlier also is we will circulate a PDF of this presentation, and responses to the questions as well will be included, and as will the link to this briefing for you to circulate with your colleagues. Okay. Okay, so we just quickly got two last questions coming in that I think we'll just cover before we leave. One of the questions is, the safe working industry is 98% casual industry. Why is ARTC so keen to hire full-time staff as an SPO? Does that come with a guarantee of work?
The aim is to reduce the number of is to reduce the movement of safe workers. We also want our safe workers to have the support and the guidance of the organisations that they work for. So if you're not working for a panel member, we want the SPOs to have the systems and processes in place to be able to look after you and manage you.
Thank you for that response there, Kath. Question, which I think maybe for you, Richard, is, will there be a list updated regularly of the SPO members and their contact details?
So we will have a list of authorised self-performer organisations that will get added to that contractor compliance system webpage, and we've got the link to that included in the slides. I'll have to take on notice whether we actually need the contact details for them. I'd thought it might be more relevant for the panel members. We'll review that as a potential improvement idea.
Thank you for that, Richard. Another question that's come in is, why are safe working providers able to use casual protection officers and self-performing organisations are not?
That's just the rules that we have made, and that's the way that we set up and organised our assurance framework.
Thank you for that response, Kath. Next question is, are track vehicle operators included in the safe working panel services process?
I'll take that one. Yes, so the roles under the panel are those covered by ARTC safe working matrix, and that includes track vehicle operator roles with regard to safe working.
Thank you, Richard. Next question that's coming in is, if a signal electrician performing safe working as an additional role to their signal duties is a casual worker for SPO, can they perform safe working duties?
The answer to that is no. They have to be an employee.
Thank you for that, Kath. Okay, the next question.
Sorry, just Rich, the only exemption to that is if they're filling an ARTC, backfilling a permanent role through ARTC. And again, that's written in our RSPR 003. If the signal electrician is backfilling a role for an ARTC working within that ARTC team, then they are able to utilise their safe working competencies.
Thank you for that clarification there, Kath. Next question that we have at the moment is, will ARTC monitor panel members and SPO for employees as casual or full-time, and what systems are in place to monitor?
So
the answer is,
So
the answer is yes. So we actually require from our SPOs, we require a statutory declaration that the people that they submitted as part of their application are employees. We are also asking that once their authorisation is granted, that information is updated regularly as through a statutory declaration, whether new people join or people depart the organisation.
There was a panel component to that question as well. So with regard to the panel, we monitor on a monthly basis the number of safe workers that each panel member's got registered with them. That would include casual, because casual employees are more unacceptable for the panel, as well as employed people.
And we're looking at we're looking at the primary registrations and the secondary registrations, and what we're looking for with our panel members is an increase in their primary registrations, not an increase in their secondaries.
Thank you both for that response. Okay, that is the last of the questions I have at the moment, but every time I have said that so far, a lot do come through, so we'll just give it a few seconds just to see if any additional questions come in. And we do still have a bit of time left in the schedule at the moment. Okay. Okay, there is another question that's just come through, which is, we have POs that are currently employed outside of the industry and provide services on a casual basis to prop up numbers as required. How can we be restricted in the use of these employees if we cannot provide full-time positions?
So I'm taking this question as the person asking the question is a potential self-performer organisation. In that instance, they would need to obtain the safe workers they need through the Safe Working Services panel.
Thank you for that, Richard. If that, I say, Richard made an assumption on which part that was coming through. If that isn't the way the question was intended, please do clarify in the question again, and we will make sure we re-answer the question. Okay, another question that's come in is, if an SP organisation has their staff safe working qualifications upgraded, will they be able to use their new qualifications to address their employers' needs?
Absolutely. And part of the SPO authorisation is actually looking at the training systems that you've got in place to be able to do that.
Thank you for
that. And
the
assurance mechanisms you've got in place as well.
Thank you. Okay, again, that's the questions I have in front of me at the moment. I'll just give it a few seconds again to see if there are any final questions coming through. Again, if for some reason any questions do come through utilising the Q&A after we've ended the briefing, we will respond to those questions, as we will do anything that comes through the swip@artc.com.au email address also. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds. Okay, I think that is all the questions today. So again, a big thank you to the presenters today for providing that information, and thanking you for your attendance today. We will circulate the presentation and response to the questions and answers as part of our wrap up for this session. Thank you all, and I'll call the session to an end. Thank you.